The Paul Feinbaum Show is presented by Johnsonville.
Centennial Park at night. What a beautiful scene as we are in Atlanta. Final road show of the so-called regular season. It is a regular season game for Georgia. They're here every year. Alabama's here pretty much every year. Mike Griffith joining us. And Mike, here we are. I know that sounds very prosaic, but I think everybody knows what is in store. What do you think?
I think it's an appropriate matchup. As we wind up divisional play and we look at what Nick Saban and Alabama have done before, you look what Kirby did. History made this year with Georgia going 8-0 in the SEC for the third straight season. Paul, that had never been done in 32 years. I mean, Spurrier didn't do it. Nick Saban didn't do it. There's been some great SEC programs, but to go 8-0 in league play 3 straight years, I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. To be fair, I know there are a lot of things to talk about. People are talking about the NIL deals, the transfer portals, possibilities for transfers, the latest rumor. I mean, Trevor Etienne from Florida, is he going in the portal? Is he not going in the portal? You hear this buzz out there. I mean, this is where we're at. And yet we've got a championship game tomorrow. We've got this playoff that, to me, again, appropriate, that there's all these teams that we're trying to shoehorn in, and everybody says, can't we just have the 12-team playoff already? So I think it's just all kind of unfolded in a really fascinating, interesting manner. You know what you said just reminded me of something that was told to me 31 years ago. I was talking to Gene Stallings. Yeah. And we were talking about the new divisions and the SEC championship game, and he was not happy. He said there will never be another team in the SEC that has a perfect record. Well, it's impossible. And he said it on the eve of the '92 game. He said we've run through the SEC with a perfect record, and we still have nothing to show for it. And in some ways, tomorrow would be the same thing for Kirby Smart. I suppose. I mean, it depends on whether they want to go with the 4 best or the 4 most deserving. We already know that. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's no question that Georgia and Alabama are 2 of the 4 best teams in the country. But the way this thing's been played out, it really makes you wonder what they're going to end up doing right now. I'm going to say this. I think Boo Corrigan, I say yay for Boo, because I think Boo Corrigan and the 13-member CFP have done the best job of all the years that they've done this. And I've been really listening
How do we know?
To what, I do. I've been listening closely to what he said. And I think Boo Corrigan has built a trap door in for the College Football Playoff Committee to leave an undefeated Florida State out. Now, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth. That's just my interpretation. No. Because more than once, Boo said this is a different team. This is a different team.
I'll grant you that. But I'll also say, Mike, I appreciate you being an optimist, but I'll trust these guys when I see it.
Well, I think they're going to do the right thing.
I want to be like Justice Potter Stewart in the famous Supreme Court ruling on obscenity. I know it when I see it. I'll see if these guys do the right thing on Sunday morning, then I'll agree with you.
Well, I trust Bill Hancock. And one of the things that happened And one of the things that happened on this last teleconference was I said, is it 4 best or is it most deserving? And Bill's, how he interrupts every now and then when he wants to clarify a point. And he said, it is the 4 best. There is nothing in the lexicon about deserving. And then Bill proceeded to say that these tiebreakers, or that it was up to the committee members to decide which ones they wanted to prioritize, whether it's conference championship, which we know matters, whether it's an undefeated record, which we know matters. It's up to the conference committee members to choose which of these tiebreakers or protocols. So again, I felt like Bill Hancock was building in trap doors for this committee to come out of that room tomorrow, or Sunday, I should say, with whatever 4 they want. And I think this year more than any year, Paul, it's been based more on the eyeball test, which I prefer to these metrics that could get bent every which way. And really, there's not a common denominator when you're talking about where a Big 12 team is ranked and a Pac-12, because they don't play in the SEC. They don't play the same level of competition. And it's not just a bunch of flubber. All you got to do is look at the number of draft picks, and all you got to do is consider this. This is the most damning stat of all. The SEC is 8-0 against other teams in the college football playoff from other conferences over the last 4 years. All time, 14-3. So, I mean, the SEC's dominated at every level. They got more talent. They win the head-to-heads. They win all the championships. 3 different teams have won the last 4. How could there not be an SEC team in the 14 playoff?
I don't know.
I don't think it's an issue.
Listen, I mean, there's nothing more I can add to what you said. But I've heard all the pundits this week.
Well, I've heard a lot of the talk, too. And that's why Kirby doesn't get wrapped up in this. You know, in 2018, a deserving Georgia team that was one of the 4 best got left out because of the politics, and we were told not to challenge.
You have not gotten over that, have you?
We were told not to challenge the authority of these trustworthy men, one of which was the Oklahoma AD, who was so trustworthy that he left the Big 12 behind their back. But anyway, his team got in. Georgia's didn't, and believe me, the SEC will be waiting for Oklahoma and Texas. But
yeah,
that
but you know, Griff,
job.
I've heard you talk about this for 5 years, but Georgia lost what? Double digits.
They lost 2 games that year.
Yeah, they lost by 20 to LSU.
Alabama lost by double digits to Auburn in 2017, got in and won a national title without even playing in the conference. My point is, it was 4 best in 2017, and they couldn't take the heat in 2018. And, Paul, you were one of the people that said Georgia should have got in.
Well,
and so was Kirk Herbstreit. You advocated for Georgia.
I did. And I'll advocate for Georgia tomorrow night if they lose.
4 best, right?
Yeah.
Do you want the 4 best? Because it's not about doing, you know, the right thing or the nice thing.
I think they should take Alabama even if they lose, don't you?
Well, I don't know about that. Let's not get carried away. I don't know about a 2-loss
I think Alabama always belongs in, even though I didn't last year, as you well know. Let me get you some thoughts on some other things.
Yeah.
Because what a week. A week ago on Saturday night, we thought Mark Stoops was heading to Texas A&M, all this other stuff.
How could you resist Mike Elko?
I don't know. I
just don't get that, right? Like, listen, and this guy might be a really good coach, but like, you hired him off of what? Because he was a coordinator there before?
He knows he doesn't need a GPS to get around Bryan, Texas.
I guess.
Right?
I think Mark Stoops is a guy, and I said it earlier on the show.
Yeah.
If one day he wakes up in bed and says, you know, I'm never going to win a championship at Kentucky, they're never going to prioritize football. They're never going to spend the kind of money that they need to spend to give Mark Stoops the players that he needs in Lexington, Kentucky. One day you say to yourself, the security and the money, at some point you want to win a championship in your life. You're not going to do it at Kentucky. And kudos to him for considering another job if those reports were accurate, because I think he is a championship caliber coach.
Okay. Anything else in the SEC? You mentioned Etienne. There's a lot going on in the portal right now.
Well,
we'll get to it Monday, of course. But what kind of trend lines do you sense?
The Etienne. The buzz from all the Florida people, and all you got to do is Google Florida and Etienne, and you'll find any number of Florida bloggers, websites, reporters, speculation. I mean, this is a game-changing player. This is a domino that falls. I mean, whoever gets Etienne, if he indeed does transfer from Florida.
What do we know, though?
Well, we know that if he stays on at Florida, he's in the midst of a rebuilding program. But if he goes somewhere that's championship ready, he could be the missing piece that gets a program over the hump.
But he hasn't made. But Mike, in fairness to him, he hasn't made up his mind yet. You're just going off of.
I think it's more than
blog chatter.
I think it's more than idle speculation. But
Okay.
it's not just him. Every player has to make a decision.
Well, sure.
And it's portal, it's GoPro, Georgia's got a couple of these guys. I reported earlier this week. Yeah, of course Georgia's going to offer money to Carson Beck to come back for another year. Of course, a linebacker like Smile Munden has a decision to make. A top 5 linebacker, does he come back to be a first rounder, perhaps a Butkus Award winner, and another championship? Of course, negotiations. And you know what? These negotiations happened before. They've been going on for decades. We just didn't know about it. I mean, look, 2020 Alabama, it was miraculous that they had 5 or 6 seniors come back. Mac Jones and Najee and Devontae, and it took them to a title. I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong.
I mean, what does that mean?
My point is negotiate retention. We all focus on recruiting. We all look at the recruiting stars and all this. The real secret has been the retention and the players coming back for their senior year. That's been the difference maker for championship programs over the last decade or two.
So is this, we have the biggest game of the year, but this stuff's already going on, isn't it?
We're talking about 2024 championship right now.
Right.
The decisions that are being made right now behind the scenes are going to determine your 2024 college football playoff field. I mean, Kirby's already working it. You know that, right? He's got his mind in two places, right? There's a process to this, and he's not broadcasting it, but he's met with all these players. He knows what his roster looks like. He has to know who's going pro, who's considering transfer, early signing period. I mean, this stuff has gotten very complicated and complex, and that's where Kirby Smart has separated from the field. Listen, he learned a lot from Nick Saban. He really, obviously, the way he built the program, the roster management
hold on a
has been
second.
the key here.
Hold on a second. I'm just going to do my best to regurgitate. You said that's why Kirby Smart has separated himself from the field.
Yeah.
You're talking about everybody else.
Yeah.
You're talking about everybody else, including Nick Saban.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't believe this.
Well, all you got to do.
I do not believe you just disrespected, and don't tell me how much you respect Nick Saban.
Oh, well.
You just flat out disrespected Nick Saban right here.
Is that disrespect?
Right here.
I mean, I think these Alabama fans.
You can't do that. No.
These same people out there that are cheering, I'll bet you these Alabama fans believe that Alabama can beat Georgia, right? I think they all believe Alabama can beat Georgia.
Yeah.
But they weren't ready to play Texas because their coaching staff didn't do a good enough job early in the season. The same team that you think can beat Georgia.
What does September 9th have to do with anything? Alabama was growing. Tommy Rees was coming into his own. They were trying to. They knew Jalen was the quarterback. They just wanted to prove to everyone else that he wasn't. Isn't that right?
They needed 3.5 years.
Nick Saban said yesterday on ESPN, we didn't bench Jalen.
Let me tell you the difference. Let me tell you why Georgia controls their destiny and Alabama doesn't.
Okay.
Because Georgia had Carson Beck prepared this season, and Alabama and their new offensive coordinator were still trying to figure out how to use Jalen Milroe. He was throwing passes across the field early in that Texas game that got intercepted.
What are they doing now? I mean, you were at Auburn last week. I mean, that was a well-prepared team, wasn't it?
Texas was. I mean, he got outcoached by Steve Sarkisian, right?
I don't know why you've gone heel on Nick Saban.
I'm not gone heel.
Yeah, you have.
Listen, you got to give Kirby credit.
You don't disrespect the GOAT.
You don't give Kirby any credit. You turn this into a Nick Saban conversation.
I don't give Kirby Smart any credit.
I'm trying to give Kirby credit, and you're turning this into some Nick Saban sob story.
No, I'm not even talking about Kirby
Nick's
Smart.
not leaving. He's coming. Clearly, he's not ready to go. He's still competitive. We don't have to.
He's still competitive.
We don't have to feel sorry for Nick Saban.
Hey, hold on a second. Did we bring Michael Bratton in here instead of Mike Griffith? I mean, what's going on here?
No. I think Kirby Smart has done one of the best coaching jobs I've ever seen when I look at all the players that have been out this year, injured, and yet they've continued to win football games. They don't have the margin for error. They can't have a Milroe miracle. That's not how this Georgia team is built, okay? They got to do it the old-fashioned way, Paul. Execution. No penalties. Win the turnover battle. Not, let's give it to Jalen and see if he makes a play. Is he crossed the line of scrimmage? No? Good, then maybe it'll be a touchdown. We don't know. He may go off for 300 yards. He may throw 3 interceptions. I don't know what we're getting from Jalen Milroe tomorrow. No idea.
Well, before you go, what's going to happen tomorrow?
I really don't know. I think this game comes down to the quarterbacks. I really do. We've seen the upside of Jalen Milroe, which is first-round talent. I don't even know if he's going to be back at Alabama. He might go pro. If he has a good enough run in the postseason, he's got that ceiling, Paul. At the same time, I've watched Carson Beck get better and better and better. I mean, this guy can solve Rubik's Cube in under a minute, which really impresses me because I've mentioned it 5 times at least. But the way he dices up defenses and makes reads at the line of scrimmage, and then he's got to match wits with Kevin Steele and all these fronts Bama's going to throw at him, I mean, it's going to be Carson Beck.
So who's going to win the game tomorrow? That's all I'm asking.
I think Georgia will win.
You think Georgia will win?
I don't say that with a deep voice. as my friend Brandon Adams would say. But I do think that Georgia has been the team that's been more consistent and will handle this environment better. That's my prediction. But Jalen Milroe, he could take the Tide all the way. So it could go. I mean, it's.
You Bama fans?
I don't know.
Security, make sure you help Mike Griffith out of here with these Bama
Might
fans.
need a Milroe miracle to get out of here tonight, huh?
We'll be right back.